Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of The 99 Names. I am your host, Bilal Khan, and I'm here with Ammar AlShukry.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's get to the topic of Al-Adheem. This is our name for today, which is Al-Adheem. Ismullah Al-Adheem. So Al-Adheem is mentioned throughout the Quran as well. And it's paired sometimes with Al-Aliy. Allah is the high, and Al-Adheem means the great. Allah being the great.
The great.
Yes. And Rabbul Arsh Al-Azim, the great or the mighty.
Or the Scottish would say the great.
The great, yeah. So, or it's the mighty. So the mighty or the great. And we're going to get to the different aspects of this name.
And its differences from Al-Akbar and Al-Mutakabbir.
Yes, it is different from Al-Akbar and Mutakabbir Al-Kabir. So, you had mentioned a good difference.
I forgot what the difference was. Oh, it had to do with Al-Akbar is great in importance versus Al-Azim is great in it's like nothing comparable to him.
So Allah Azza wa Jal is great in his essence. Akbar meaning, yes, exactly. So you say Allahu Akbar, you're basically saying that there's nothing greater, nothing more important. There's nothing
else matters
than Allah Azza wa Jal.
Yeah.
And so Al-Azim, Al-Izam, greatness as opposed to smallness, right? And so Allah Azza wa Jal is great in his essence. There's no limit to him.
Okay.
There's no limit to his knowledge.
Okay.
There's no limit to his ability. And so Allah Azza wa Jal is Al-Azim in his essence and in his attributes.
So he is limitless in his everything.
Yes. And so also Azim carries another connotation, which is Mu'azzam, which means that he is the one who people hold greatly.
Okay.
Great in their reverence, great in their regard. And so you have ta'zim of Allah Azza wa Jal. What is that? It manifests itself in everything that we do. Having ta'zim of the name of Allah, so that we don't speak Allah's name in vain.
Okay.
We don't just make oaths with regards to Allah Azza wa Jal that are not true.
Now, what's the difference? Now, this is something that I've always wondered about. Is like among Christians, right? They say don't speak God's name in vain.
Yes.
Versus like, how does that compare to when you're saying?
I don't know the Christian.
They're like, sometimes Christians will be like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? Like when something happens, right? Like for me, when somebody says that, that's like the equivalent of saying, oh, Subhanallah, or like.
I don't think they mean it by Subhanallah though. I think that a lot of times it's really just it's adding nothing to the conversation, and they don't even mean Subhanallah by it. They don't mean any reverence directed to Jesus Christ by it.
Because if something's happening, right, and like something bad happened, right, and then like people will say that, but I always thought that like I felt like that was an appropriate response as opposed to somebody's like, oh, guys, I remember in class, one of the teachers was like, don't speak God's name in vain. And they say, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't get it.
He was probably just trying to get the student to be quiet.
Maybe.
But if anybody has any comments with regard to this conversation, please do comment below and share your thoughts if you're familiar with what Bilal is discussing. Because it is interesting, but I want to just try to limit. We already started off this conversation with a big kind of tangent.
From an Islamic perspective, from what you're teaching.
That you don't swear by Allah Azza wa Jal, right? You don't say, Wallahi this, Wallahi that, Wallahi this, Wallahi that, wa Rabbul Kaaba, and these are false oaths.
Okay.
So you pay attention to.
So kind of it's something that you find common in the Arab culture.
Oh, very much.
But I don't see that outside of the Arab culture, like in that manner.
I don't know outside of the Arab country.
Okay.
What do you guys swear by in Desi culture?
It's just like if you're swearing in the Desi culture, it's like you're really swearing.
Okay.
Like
good for them then. If a person is swearing by Allah Azza wa Jal, then they're being truthful, then great. Okay, so the second is we're talking about Allah Azza wa Jal being exalted and Allah Azza wa Jal being revered in a great manner. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in difficulty, he used to say, La ilaha illallah al-azim al-halim, La ilaha illallah rabbul arsh al-azim, La ilaha illallah rabbul samawati wa rabbul ard, wa rabbul arsh al-kareem. And this is narrated by Al-Bukhari or recorded by Al-Bukhari that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say, there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah al-azim al-halim, Allah the azim, the great, as we'll translate it here. And Al-Halim, remember we talked about Hilm as being the forbearance, And forbearance, we said, was restraint.
Okay.
Right? And La ilaha illallah Rabbul Arsh al-Azim. La ilaha illallah. There's nothing worthy of worship except Allah, the Lord of the great throne. La ilaha illallah, the Lord of the samawat.
So these are all what selections from the Quran?
This is from Bukhari. That the Prophet
okay.
used to say in times of difficulty. This is what he used to say.
Okay.
He used to say, La ilaha illallah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and the Lord of Al-Arsh al-Kareem, the Lord of the
So this is all
throne.
one statement or various statements?
This is various statements that he used to make all in sequence.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's just one tradition in that sense.
Okay.
Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he says kalimatan. He said there are two words that are habibatan ila rahman. They are beloved to ar-Rahman. Thaqilatan or khafifatan al lisan. They are light on the tongue.
Okay.
Thaqilatan fil mizan. They are heavy on the scales of good deeds on the Day of Judgment. What are they? Subhanallah wa bihamdih. Subhanallah al-Azim.
Oh, okay.
Subhanallah.
Now we know what
bihamdih.
Al-Adheem is in that context.
Yes,
Okay.
Subhanallah al-Azim. Subhanallah and His praise, and Subhanallah the great.
Okay.
And so these two words, the Prophet ﷺ, this is also in Bukhari and Muslim.
Wait, Subhanallah wa bihamdi, Subhanallah al-Azim. That's it. Okay.
So the Prophet ﷺ said these two phrases, these two words.
But this is different from the hadith of Rasulullah where he mentioned Subhanallah wa bihamdi 100 times.
Yes, this is different.
Okay, so it's not Subhanallah al-Azim 100 times also.
No,
Okay.
it's Subhanallah wa bihamdihi 100 times. That's separate. But here the Prophet ﷺ is saying is these two phrases are both beloved to Allah. They are heavy in the scale of good deeds, and they're extremely light upon the tongue. And so what's that encouraging us to do?
Say it more.
Say it a lot.
All right.
Right? Because they're heavy on the scales. And so every time you say them, you are being rewarded a lot. The return on investment of them is very, very great. Also from the greatness of Allah, so we'll just mention a couple of manifestations of this extreme reverence for Allah Azza wa Jal because of His greatness is that you understand that Allah Azza wa Jal's greatness is without limit.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that create in you as far as belief and emotion? That there's no one who's greater than Him. Whether
Greatness
you're
without
walking
limit.
amongst kings or whether you're walking amongst tyrants or
You know,
whether you're walking amongst...
This reminds me of how one of the Mughal kings of India, he was known as Akbar, who basically kind of made up his own religion and stuff.
Mhm.
But many times historically they call him Mughal-e-Azam, the greatest Mughal, right?
Mhm.
And he had I guess he had the most rule, but part of what he did was he kind of brought a lot more of the territories under his control. But then he also was very, I guess he modified Islam quite a bit.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned tyrants and kings, and
And so whether you're in the company of Mughal al-Azam or whoever, you recognize that Allah Azza wa Jal is al-Azim. Allah Azza wa Jal is the greatest, and there's no one who is equal to Him. Even Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah, who passed away recently, our champ, the hero, he called himself the greatest, but when he succumbed to his long illness, rahimahullah, one of his famous quotations is that he said that I have this illness so that I know that I'm not the greatest, He is.
Yes.
Right? And so Allah Azza wa Jal is the greatest, and from this understanding of the ta'zeem of Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah is the greatest, is that I submit myself to Him. There's no one more worthy of me submitting to than Allah. There's no one more worthy of me submitting my intellect to than Allah. People, they sometimes have this arrogance about themselves that, I don't understand why God does such and such. Right?
But that they say that as if they're
worthy of understanding or have the ability to understand, or Allah's nature, right? Allah, just His existence. And then we talked about that when we discussed Al-Awwal. That at some point in time, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you need to stop and just understand and affirm your belief and realize that you're never going to, understand
the human
everything.
existence is not capable of comprehending many things
of the divine,
not even the divine, of creation.
Yes, of creation. And we all submit that we have limitations. If you're not a science person, which I'm not, I was presented this past weekend with some homework on partial differential equations. Right, which is a really high level math class, and I'm just like, man, as soon as algebra in high school or middle school was enough for me, the rest of math was just wasn't my thing.
I had a friend of mine who was really bad at math in high school, and it wasn't until he was able to apply it to physics of motor vehicles and cars that he finally got it. And now once he saw that math applied, it made sense to him. And then he became a programmer and compliance IT auditor in finance.
Great. But we have this statement where we say master of or jack of all trades, master of none, because we all understand the limits of human ability.
Yeah.
That you're not going to have a person who's just a master of everything. And so if we submit that we are limited in our ability,
but you
then it is arrogant to think that a person is going to understand Allah Azza wa Jal.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
No.
And that's why I think it's important to get multiple scholarly perspectives. Just like, okay, so Abdul Bari Yahya, Shaykh Abdul Bari Yahya, one of the things that he was mentioning after he taught the tafsir of Surah Yusuf.
Yeah.
So one of the guys, I think was it you that asked me told me to tell him my reflections from a cinematic storytelling perspective. So I told it to him, and his response was, it's amazing, not just Surah Yusuf, but other things, but specifically even from Surah Yusuf, you could get so many different reflections, perspectives, and feedbacks on that from cinematic storytelling perspective, from sociological perspective, from a government policy perspective. So depending on who's looking at it with some knowledge, that's why it's like one person is never enough to cover the breadth of what.
Yeah, there's no one person. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. So that is from holding Allah Azza wa Jal in exaltation and His greatness. The second after that is ta'zeem of Allah's words. His book. And that's part of that is the reverence that we have. Usually people will take the mushaf and they'll put it where? They'll put it on the top shelf. Yeah, that's from recognizing Allah Azza wa Jal's greatness. That a person purifies themselves when they mention the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, when they recite the word of Allah.
But sometimes they leave it there.
Okay, yeah, that's
many
true.
Times actually.
But let's look at the good side of that, and that is that you hold. There are people who the ta'zeem of the thing that Allah Azza wa Jal swears by. Okay. And so one Shaykh, he mentions he was just a student, and he was tossing a pen around. Yeah. His Shaykh said to him, Allah Azza wa Jal swears by this pen.
Don't toss it around.
So you see this level of ta'zeem for Allah Azza wa Jal. Just holding reverence for what Allah swears by, for what Allah Azza wa Jal says.
This brings back to another question. Is there any published work that showcases all the things that he has ever sworn by in the Quran?
I don't think it needs a published work. If a person it's not that many things. Okay. That Allah Azza wa Jal swears by. So if a person just were to do one reading of the Quran, they would find all of the things that Allah swears by. There are a lot of things in Juz' Amma that Allah swears by. He also swears by the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other things as well.
Now, are there things that he swears by that are mentioned in hadith specifically, like hadith Qudsi?
Yeah. So, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions that Allah Azza wa Jal says with regards to the da'wat al-madlum, he says, وَعِزَّتِي وَجَلَالِي, I swear by my izzah and I swear by my jalal, I swear by my izzah, my power, that I will aid you. I will aid the...
Aid you or aid you?
Aid.
Okay.
I will assist. I will support.
Okay.
This da'wah of this person who is oppressed, even if it's after a while.
Okay.
Right, so you'll find it in the hadith as well. But if you were to just do a reading of the Quran, you'll find it.
Wait, what is the da'wah of the one who is oppressed?
The dua.
Oh, dua. Okay.
The dua of the person who's oppressed.
I gotcha. Oh, that's why they say you don't mess with people.
Yeah, don't mess with the dua of the oppressed, because Allah Azza wa Jalla will accept it. Also, from the ta'zeem of Allah Azza wa Jalla is to obey Him, obviously. Right? That a person... the famous story of Imam Malik, his position with regards to not praying after Asr, right? He doesn't pray after Asr. This is his famous opinion. You don't pray
Was he the only one?
Extra prayers after Asr. And so a student came and he just, he saw him sitting down without praying. And so he got up and he said, not even a student, it might have been a child. It was basically someone who didn't know. Yeah. He says to him, he says to him, get up and pray. You didn't sit down. You didn't pray. Get up and pray. So Imam Malik gets up and he prays. Okay. And then his students are all jotting down notes. Everybody's waiting. Did he change his position? What just happened? And so when they asked him, they said, what happened? Did you change your opinion? He said, no, I was afraid that I would be from amongst the people whom Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ ارْكَعُوا لَا يَرْكَعُونَ. And when it is said to them, make ruku', they do not make ruku'. And so he's saying, I don't want to be someone who's told to pray and then I don't pray. So I just prayed just in that moment out of his fear, reverence, and submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. He's submitting his famous opinion, his position, and all of that for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. The last thing that I want to mention, exalting Allah Azza wa Jal in your fear and your love and your hope.
Yeah.
And always understanding his greatness just in your day-to-day life. It really manifests itself. We were just discussing last night the story of the man who who's in the shade of Allah. He's a person who cries out of fear of Allah Azza wa Jal.
Yeah.
Having that reverence of Allah, like really appreciating the relationship that you have with him, appreciating the guidance that he guided you with. The Prophet ﷺ said 3 people, or a person who has 3 characteristics, they will taste the sweetness of faith. And one of those is a person who hates to return to kufr, just like a person would hate to be thrown into the fire.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like a person really seeing the greatness of what they have. Just the fact that we know Allah. Here we are, we're talking about the names of Allah. We're going from one video to the next video to the next video, and people might be watching this and they're watching this video and the next video and the next video. And you're not understanding that these are names that Allah gave us access to. If He didn't give us access to these names, we never would have known them.
One question comes to mind is how many people have a crisis of faith are able to get out of that if they simply learn the names of Allah?
So many people feel like they're destined to the hellfire.
Okay.
And they're like 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old. Because what they've been told is hellfire, 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 hellfire. And if they simply knew that Allah Azza wa Jalla was Ar-Rahman, Allah is Ar-Rahim, if they knew that Allah was Al-Ghafur, Al-Tawwab, if they knew that He was Al-Afu, if they knew that He was all of these things. And that's why part of knowledge is to, and wisdom is to know what is appropriate and when to share it with. I heard this example yesterday, in fact, with regards to just the concept of suicide.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you have a hadith, authentic hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ says that the one who kills himself by stabbing with a piece of iron or metal, that person will be stabbing themselves in the hellfire perpetually, forever.
Yeah.
If a person kills themselves by throwing themselves to the ground,
like
from a high place, jumps from a place, that person will be falling in the fire perpetually, forever. So they'll be re-experiencing that. Now, the person... But at the same time, there's another man who injured himself, whether it was in battle or not, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Authentic as well. This man had injured himself, and so he cut off his arm.
Okay.
And he bled to death.
But did he do it just to die, or did he? Okay.
So he then had a. It might have been that he was just so.
Or it could have been maybe the injury he was afeared. I mean, it might have. Okay.
And so he.
Amputation as opposed. Okay.
And so he passed away, and the person who was with him, I don't remember if it was his father or who was with him, but he said he saw him in a dream.
Okay.
And in the dream, he saw that this person. He asked him. He saw that his hands were like cuffed. Chained or shackled. His hands were shackled. And so he said to him, "What happened to you? What did your Lord do with you?" He said, "My Lord forgave me." And he said, "What about your hands? Like, I see that your hands aren't free." And he said, "My Lord said that He's not going to release that which I damaged by myself."
Okay.
And so this man then went to Rasulullah ﷺ and he told him of the story. And he said, "Oh Allah, release his hands. Oh Allah, release his hands." So the Prophet ﷺ was seeking forgiveness for him. And so here the Shaykh was mentioning the story, and he said, a student of knowledge has to know, you have to know when to use what.
Okay.
Right? And so if you've got people who are like suicidal or addicted to drugs or something like that, you don't tell them the story of the man whom Allah Azza wa Jal forgave. But at the same time, if you're going to visit the family to give condolences to a family who their son or daughter or whoever had committed suicide, then that is what you do. And you encourage them to, give charity and to make istighfar and to do hajj and umrah on behalf of their deceased, so that you know what to share at the appropriate moment. Right? And so many times when young people, whoever, they feel like it's a mistake to always just talk about the rahmah of Allah always, because that's going to create people who sin. And you have to balance, and you have to know. And so that's why even, the scholars, they'll mention even the same person during different states of their life or stages of their life, they should be more inclined to fear of Allah or hope in Allah's mercy, And even in the same day, depending on their state.
Okay.
They think about the fear of Allah and they think about the mercy of Allah. And you should know the names that have to do with all of them.
So wait, you were mentioning there was few points though. Like one who hates to return to kufr. What was next after that?
The other two?
Yeah.
So the first one is that Allah and His Messenger become more beloved to him more than anyone else.
Okay.
That you taste the sweetness of faith. Allah and His Messenger are more beloved to you more than anyone else.
Okay.
The second is to love a person and only love them for the sake of Allah.
Okay. So,
that if a person reaches that level, you're loving people and you're only loving them for the sake of Allah. Sweetness of faith there. The third is to hate to return to disbelief, just like a person would hate to return to the fire.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So I guess some takeaways. Woo, light turned off. So that's like the.
That is the sign that this has gone really long. Where are we at?
We're at 20 some minutes.
Yeah, that's a long.
Dami, we're probably gonna shorten this up, but so basic takeaways.
Exalting Allah Azza wa Jal. One,
Okay.
recognizing that
Subhanallah
Allah is
wa bihamdi.
Subhanallah
Subhanallah
al-Azim.
al-Azim.
That's one. So saying that statement a lot. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanallah al-Azim. Also of it is to recognize that Allah Azza wa Jal is greater than everything. He's greater than your problems. He's greater than your opponents. He's greater than you, right? And He's greater than your whims and your desires and your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. And your difficulty in submitting to Him. And the third aspect of it is practicing ta'zeem of Allah Azza wa Jal. Practicing the, it may not come normal to a person, right? That a person, for example, for example, ta'zeem of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every time you hear his name that you say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that might not be natural for a person. Okay. But you continue to do it until it becomes natural to you. How do you show reverence to Allah Azza wa Jal? It could be something as simple as you taking your mushaf that you just keep on the desk and that you bring it up on the shelf, that you just sit there and you reorganize your bookshelf.
Or you just clean up your desk.
Or you clean up your desk. But these are all exercises. I'm not saying this is a be all end all or anything like that. Yeah. But these are all part
the question
of the spiritual
is,
journey.
What's the one thing that you can do to
kind of right now?
Yeah, give reverence to Allah.
Yes.
And make that a conditioned habit.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, I think that's a good conclusion.
جزاكم الله خير وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.